Hi, freaky friends. I'm not in the she shed today, and there's a good reason why. When I was sitting in my she shed, there was something that looked, you're going to think I'm crazy. There was something that looked similar to Bigfoot that I believed was hanging out in my she shed. I knew you'd think I was crazy. I knew it. So I had to run out here to the barn. Just tell me if you guys see anything behind me. I don't want Bigfoot to sneak up on me. Just make sure you tell me, okay? Because I'm terrified right now. I'm not even sure if I'm going to make it back into my she shed today. Oh well, all the month of October I planned on doing, for Hollyween, the special I'm having all month. I'm going to do it in front of the campfire all month, in front of my she shed. Because I'm kind of terrified that Bigfoot might still be in there, and I don't want to, cut. Relax. It's only me, the mullet man. Seen something really freaky back there. You scared me a little. I'm not going to lie. I really did think there was Bigfoot sneaking up on me. I seen him in my she shed back there. No, it wasn't Bigfoot. It was something with a pale face, and I just was saying better safe than sorry. I'm sorry, just go right ahead with whatever you're doing. I gotta go. No, oh God, wait, can you hold off on that? I was expecting Bigfoot, so you came as a big surprise. Can you hold off with whatever you're gonna do, because I want to tell my fans one more thing.
Get out what you're gonna say. Get it over with.
Happy Hollyween. Oh God. Oh God. Oh no. Oh no. Oh God. Oh God. Oh. We are going to discuss some of the most eerie places in which someone was murdered. Let's travel to Uniontown, Alabama, into the backwoods where all things creepy usually happen. Wait, Alabama? I feel like I'm talking about The Hills Have Eyes right now because it involves the backwoods and Alabama, but I'm not. I'm sorry, Alabama. I shouldn't have said that. So please don't unsubscribe, as I do believe your mama's family tree is not a single branch, because mama's been around town a few times. She has definitely branched out to more people than just your brother. I'm sorry. Anyway, let's go back to traveling to Uniontown, Alabama, into the backwoods, where an old abandoned house sits, filled with a haunted history. This house was built in 1918 and may have held many secrets before the Lucys even moved in. John Hardy built and lived in the home until 1919, when John died from an unidentified illness inside the home at the age of 48. His wife Mary lived there 4 more years. After this, a well-to-do family, the Colemans, actually bought the house. The father, Robert Coleman, died in the house on Christmas Day, 1939. His wife lived in the house for the rest of her life. She died at 91 years old in January of 1981. In 1991, the home was starting to fall apart when the Lucy family moved to Alabama from Florida to buy the home. First off, we're talking about Florida people now, so it could get strange really quickly. Now, here I go, making fun of Florida people. I'm just going to piss off all the states in a minute, and no one's going to watch me. I'll talk about Oklahoma people in a minute, and that's where I'm from, so that way we can be fair, okay? I know we got a bunch of incest, strange people here too, so it's okay. Many people that lived in the area believed the Lucy family could be connected to the mafia because nobody could figure out where they even made their money from. Philip and Margaret Lucy moved in this large home with their 9 children. They had a bio daughter and 3 bio sons, along with 2 stepchildren. The stepchildren did not live with them in this new home. The Lucy family also adopted 3 children. Allan Marvel was born on June 8, 1971 in Lee County, Florida, to parents Willard and Ardella Marvel. After Allan's parents were divorced, Allan moved in with his mother, who worked so much that Allan was often neglected and left by himself at home or with his 19-year-old brother. Allan's dad, Willard, actually reported his wife to CPS, and Allan was put into foster care. So when Allan was 7 years old, he packed up all his clothes and moved in with the Lucy family. but you'll find out it's not a blessing for him. His new father, Philip, had a history of violence. He was dishonorably discharged from the army for beating up a soldier during the Korean War. And also his bio son, Jason, said he could be violent at times with his own family. Some point after adopting Allan, 2 more children were adopted. One of those children, Donald Lucy, was autistic and was beaten by his new father with a shovel. Allan was just a couple of years older than Jason, and they both quickly became not only brothers, but best friends. They would often hop on their little bikes and just ride in order to get away from their new creepy home life. Allan was just a few weeks shy of turning 14 when the Lucys reported him missing on May 21st, 1985. They suggested to the authorities that he had run away to Florida to find his biological parents. And they also mentioned that, they had actually had recent trouble with his behavior. Jason would tell his friends that his dad had killed Allan, but no one took this seriously. Jason also recounted seeing his brother laying still on the kitchen floor after Philip had lost his temper and punched him in the head. This was actually on the night he went missing. Jason claimed that later that night he saw Philip walking around outside covered in dirt and holding a shovel. Like I said, no one took Jason serious, and police were also unable to get a search warrant to search the home or the land because there was simply no evidence his parents had done anything to him. The case was registered with the Missing Children's Bureau, and Allan's picture appeared on milk cartons and was distributed on flyers. After some time, the case of Allan's disappearance just went cold. Then in 1993, a mysterious fire broke out and burned parts of the house. The house fire appeared to be suspicious, and it was thought that Allan's parents had set it on fire. Pretty quick after the fire, the Lucys put their home up for sale. It was purchased almost immediately by a man named Kelly Kirby, a resident of Washington who had a passion for restoring old homes. Shortly after purchasing the home, Kirby sent a team in early 1994 to inspect it for structural damage. While inspecting the foundation for termite damage, the team of inspectors came across what they were least expecting. As they dug around in a crawl space under the front porch of the home, one of the inspectors' rakes struck a large root, becoming stuck. Local stories have been passed around over the years of the possibility of a treasure being buried beneath this house. So out of curiosity, he started to dig deeper in hopes he would find something. Digging down, he came to a layer of red bricks, excited that he had just found the fabled treasure buried beneath the home. He started to dig up the bricks, only to find a trash bag beneath them. Unwrapping the bag, the crew found the remains of Allan Lucy, wrapped in a child's Disney blanket, buried alongside a collection of his toys and other items. Finally, after nearly a decade, Philip Lucy was charged with the 1985 murder of his son, Allan Lucy. It was ruled that his wife was an accessory to the murder. Even so, she was still allowed to return home to care for their other children. That in itself was very crazy to me. I think she might have had something to do with the murder, but you're going to send her home to care for the other kids? Very odd. Shortly after he was accused of Allan's death, Margaret divorced Philip, but died shortly after with cancer in December of 1998. Philip was sent to numerous mental hospitals on study for whether or not his mental state deemed him fit to even stand trial in court. He was also charged for intimidating a witness. He had one of his older sons call Jason and threaten him and told the older son to beat the hell out of that Judas goat. His story changed many times over the course of the trial, as he attempted to stall the case for as long as he could. Philip claimed to not even be mentally unstable, adding, if anybody's going to have angel wings one day, it's going to be me. He protested that his son made up the whole story about the night in the kitchen in 1985, claiming that the Alabama Bureau of Investigations was out to get him and had forced Jason to tell lies. Up until the trial, Allan's bio mother had no idea Allan had even been reported missing. Once they actually learned of his body being discovered, both parents would attend every day of the second trial. Throughout the entire trial, Philip claimed not guilty, and he even claimed that despite being proven by authorities that the remains were Allan's, he said that the bones were not his. The ones that were found were just Halloween prank. That Jason and some of the other boys had dug some bones up at the cemetery and just laid them around where they were eventually found by these termite guys. Philip appealed the verdict but failed to see any change, and a second verdict in 2001 still found him guilty. The day after that, Philip hung himself with a bedsheet inside of his jail cell. A friend of Philip's would later say that Philip had a rocking chair placed on the corner of the porch, right above where Allan's remains were later found. His friend said Philip told him once that he kept feeling the presence of ghosts where he liked to rock away. The mansion is now interestingly owned by an Air Force base in Alaska, although there seems to be no plans to restore it, and it is unclear why the Air Force would now even own this old home. The dilapidated house is now known as the Lucy Murder House.
Hello, my name's Mike the Mullet. Ollie told me I needed to come and show y'all the next creepy house on the list. And because it was located in Germany and I didn't have the money to go, I've been having to pay for all my beer, you know. I decided I'm going to go to the movie theater, sit down and watch it right in the movie theater. Yeah, I thought you could watch it with me. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's real stressful. So how about you eat some popcorn, have a few beers, because you're going to need it in this episode. It's one stressful story. I'll let you start it, but hey, if you need some company, come on back to old Mike. You get scared in any way, Mike will protect you. I'm good at that, baby.
It all started with an ad in a newspaper that read, "Farmer is looking for a wife. I'm kind, nice, gentle, male, 45 years old, humorous, domestic, looking for a woman willing to move for a shared future." It seemed innocent from the outside to all the neighbors. They just saw a nice farmer longing for love of his life to move into a farmhouse where him and his sister lived. The farmer, Wilfried Wagener, had already been married in 1995, but the relationship didn't make it a full year. In school, Wilfried was a special needs student who learned early on what it felt like to be powerless. His father drank, beat him, and abused the family. So when he married his first wife, he became just like the man he hated. Wilfried burned his first wife's skin with an iron, tied her to a radiator, and with the encouragement of an ex-girlfriend, stabbed her in the privates with a rubber police baton. After this, his first wife divorced him. He ended up in prison for the abuse of his wife, though. He spent about 4 years in prison. Then on January 17, 1999, 29-year-old Angelika answered a Lonely Hearts ad in the newspaper and thought she had met the perfect farmer of her dreams. She was a professional gardener who had never had a permanent relationship and still even lived with her mother. She was overweight, plain looking, and because of that, she had no self-esteem. She had a cruel side. She was a farmer's daughter, and she was known to be mean to the animals on the farm that she's supposed to take care of. She had a secret evil side, but unlike Wilfried, she had an above-average IQ. On the couple's first date, they walked through town, holding hands, and they kissed that same day. She believed it was love at first sight. 2 weeks later, they got married, and Angelika just stops all communication with her mom. Wilfried seemed to be the perfect husband until one night Angelika burnt the pasta she had cooked for dinner. This caused him to twist her arm and throw her to the ground. She had no self-esteem and wanted to keep Wilfried, so no matter what she had to do, she just endured through. He would bite the blood out of her breast. He would cover her head with the blanket and lay on top of her until she actually lost consciousness. He called this the blanket hag game. He would strangle her, scald her, throw her down the stairs of her home, knock her teeth out, shave her eyebrows off, ram forks in her thighs, and even poke sticks down her throat. Wilfried enjoyed torturing women, and so she thought up an idea where she could still live with him but not be the one that he would abuse. This is when Angelika came up with the idea of the Lonely Hearts ad in the newspaper. They used a photo of Wilfried when he was much younger and sprawled on a couch. They got a divorce, and she played like she was his sister. In 2008, a woman we will call Anna Marie answered the ad, given aliases in order to protect the victims in this story. She was only 21 years old. The relationship is said to last under a year. Anna Marie did not move in the house, but apparently gave herself completely to Wilfried. Her bank account, pen, and documents, and access to her mail. Wilfried began to hit her. When he told her on the phone in July 2009 that he wanted to kill her, she fled with the help of her brothers. She was actually the lucky one in this story. In November 2011, a woman did move in with the couple. Crystal answered the ad and quickly fell for Wilfried's charm. But after she moved in, things quickly began to change. The house of horrors was not heated and was cold and dark. It was moldy and wallpaper was falling off the walls. Wilfried, along with Angelika and his new slave, all slept in the living room because it was actually the warmest place in the home. She was held hostage and was often chained to the bathtub or the radiator. She was beaten, strangled, burned with red hot metal, scalded with boiling water, and tortured with electric stun guns and pepper spray. And Angelika would tear out huge chunks of her hair when she didn't obey Wilfried. The abuse was not all from Wilfried. Angelika may have been more abusive than even he was. They recorded all the abuse so they could watch it later. Crystal was chained to a pigsty with handcuffs while she stood barefoot in manure, wearing only her underwear. She stated fortunately that the pigs left her alone. Later, she was forbidden to use the bathroom and in desperation had to use the cat's litter tray. At some point, she was only permitted to sleep under the computer desk. Her cell phone, purse, driver's license, and bank card were also taken from her. After they grew tired of using Crystal as a sex slave, they let her finally leave the home. First, she had to sign a paper saying that all the injuries on her body she had actually done to herself, and she was threatened that if she told anyone, she would be killed. Then in October 2013, 33-year-old Angelika answered the farmer's ad, but she would never be seen again. 2 weeks after meeting Wilfried, she became his third wife. She was abused in a similar way as Crystal. She was chained inside the bathtub, naked and face down for several weeks. At times, Angelika would put water in the tub and tell Wilfried she was gonna drown that old cow. Angelika was forced to take a substance that she was allergic to, which caused her joints to swell. When Angelika was chained to the radiator and urinated on herself, she was punished with scalding hot water. She was rarely given any food or drink and made to obey Wilfried's every disturbing command. Angelika would throw Angelika to the floor and crush her chest with her knee. She called it a trampoline game. According to Angelika, Angelika made a desperate attempt to escape by trying to run from Angelika when she was being taken to the barn naked. She said she fell and hit her head on the concrete. Afterwards, Angelika said she was able to get her back up the stairs and chained her back in the bathtub. When Angelika came in the bathroom the next morning, Angelika was dead. The couple discussed feeding Angelika's body to the pigs, but worried some of her would be left over. They stuffed her body in the freezer, and when Angelika's frozen pizza wouldn't fit, she pushed Angelika's head down further into the freezer and set her frozen pizza on her face. Not only to make room for her pizza, but I guess to kind of hide her face. Which is so disturbing to me, thinking that she probably came and got that pizza later and ate it. After starting to really need the room in their freezer, Angelika took Angelika's body out, let it thaw, and cut it up with a saw. She then burned her body in their fireplace. Angelika even claimed to have used a hammer on Angelika's teeth and bones until they were reduced to dust. But worst of all, the couple kept Angelika's phone, often texting her mother to keep her from looking into her daughter's whereabouts. Angelika blunted 4 blades, cutting up her remains. She stated, "I worked my ass off, and he just kept asking when I would finally be finished." She burned the body in the furnace piece by piece for several weeks, and it took the whole night to cremate the head. Angelika would say that burning her remains warmed up the room nicely. While busy burning Angelika's body, she was talking to other women at the same time who had responded to Wilfried's matrimonial ad. He was constantly looking for his dream woman, she said. He wouldn't let it go. They made contact with the new woman through their ad. It was Suzanne. She was brought into their house and abused in a similar way as the other girls, only she was chained in the basement. Shortly before midnight, April 21st, 2016, she was brought by ambulance to the hospital. Angelika walked to the neighbors after her car had broke down with a battered Suzanne inside. Angelika had actually been trying to drive her back to her old apartment so she could die there because she didn't want to make a body disappear again. It was too hard last time. As soon as the neighbors saw the condition Suzanne was in, they called an ambulance. This event was the trigger that brought everything to light. During the ambulance trip, the doctor noticed that there were wounds to Suzanne's entire body. Bruising, signs of being bound, toenails that had been pulled out, and rotting flesh on the tailbone area. Suzanne would have had to have been laying in the same position for weeks to have this kind of damage to her tailbone. It was not possible to save her, and she ended up dying. Angelika later said at trial, Wilfried gave me 3 tasks to perform. Go to work, get a driver's license, and find him a suitable candidate for a wife, because I disappointed him. I was not the woman he had dreamed of. Prosecutors had demanded life prison terms for both in the almost 2-year trial. Several of the deeply traumatized survivors only dared to speak out and recount their experience once the Wageners were in custody. After their arrest, the couple had sought to shift the blame on each other. Angelika received 13 years in prison, and her former husband, Wilfried, was sentenced to 11 years in a psychiatric ward. Angelika smiled as she received her sentence, as she knew she had gotten off light for what she had done to these women. Dave McLeod, a 50-year-old Scottish roofer, bought the House of Horrors at a knockdown price in February 2016 and claimed he wanted to open a refuge for battered women. Actually, he was arrested in 2018 for making the home a giant cannabis home. He grew him some Mary Jane inside there. So much for helping needy women. It now sits abandoned, and to the neighbors that live around the home, they say that it is haunted. The Route 40 killer, Brian Pennell, lived in a home filled with dolls. He murdered 5 women between 1987 to 88. His crime shocked the little state of Delaware, not because it was the first and only case of serial murder in the state's history, but more so due to the twisted savagery of the crime he committed. For 11 months, Pennell cruised Interstate 40 and 13 in search of women that he could torture, and he found the perfect victim in form of a... Once engaging in a conversation with the woman, Pennell would coerce the unsuspecting victim into his van and then drive to an isolated spot where he would then proceed to subject his new captive to unspeakable amounts of torture. And inside the van, he carried a so-called kit that contained specially chosen devices used to torture his victims. Such items include pliers, a whip, handcuffs, needles, knives, and other types of restraints. His modus operandi varied in every murder, which threw the police off track, messed them up. Sometimes he would simply bind his victims by the hands and ankles while he raped them and beat their buttocks with his whip. Other times he would hit them with a hammer until they were just battered and bloody and still alive. And in other cases, he used the pliers to squeeze the victim's breasts and cut off her... Eventually, he would show mercy by strangling them to death, then bashing in their skulls with a blunt object for good measure. Finally, the bodies would be dumped along wooded areas next to highways 40 and 13. He was sentenced to death on Halloween 1991 and was executed in 1992. Pennell was the only serial killer in the U.S. to ever ask to be executed for his crimes. His home is the creepiest of the abandoned homes that I have shown so far, almost as if it was frozen in time. It is a 2-story in the middle of nowhere. There is a murky green-colored car with smashed windows still parked on the driveway outside of this vine-strewn clapperboard home with ready-made beds upstairs. The dolls are still dressed up, but now covered with dust and faded by the sun next to an aged Bible. The wallpaper has begun peeling away from the wall from mold as rubbish has been left all over the floor. A lone rocker can be seen sitting on the porch. I can almost feel his cold stare as he sits in the rocker, rocking. It's a really spooky home, I think. It's just still so put together. It's just spooky. Before I let you guys go, I have actually a scary story of my very own. When me and my husband went on our anniversary motorcycle trip, I talked my husband into visiting every old water mill we could find because I absolutely love them. We enjoyed every meal but one in particular that gave us shivers up and down our spines. My husband does not in any way believe in ghosts, so I was shocked when he ended up as creeped out as I was. I'm usually the dramatic one in the relationship, but yeah, he was pretty creeped out too. It was just a feeling. It was strange. We pulled over into this small pullover on the side of the road on our motorcycles and could barely locate the mill through the thick woods. The mill was Greer Springs Mill in Missouri. As soon as we stopped, my phone just went bananas. It wouldn't allow me to push any buttons. It was just unusable. The only thing that worked on my husband's phone was the camera a little bit. So we started walking down to the mill. The humidity was thick, and I've never encountered so many mosquitoes in my life. I mean, I'm from Oklahoma. I'm used to mosquitoes. But I'm talking about thousands floating all over me. And the humidity, I was just pouring sweat. It was insane. The whole field was just super creepy. I told my husband to stand in front of the mill and I would take his picture. I took 2 pictures. When I went back and looked at both pictures, one had something in the window and one did not. So I decided to look up the history of this old mill. It was built in August of 1860 by Samuel Greer, a Confederate Army captain. The mill actually fell victim to bushwhackers who set it on fire. After the Civil War, he rebuilt it. At one time, across the street stood the old caretaker's cottage. The visitors could park right there at her cottage. And there's a woman named Norma who would make sure that they didn't take matches, lighters, or smokes into the mill. She would even check their pockets if she didn't believe that they were telling the truth. She wanted to make sure that the old mill would not be set on fire again. Suddenly so happy that me and my husband didn't have a lighter on us when we visited because I thought Shirley would have died. I don't know, I just had to add that because it really spooked us out. And it fit with the theme of spooky places because it was definitely spooky.
Oh my god, Bigfoot is real. It wasn't me, Bigfoot's real. Oh my god, I gotta go, bye.